Okay,
Switch
recording's back.
screens and share. Share? Share screen. Okay, right. So, can I just check in with the methodology here? So, this is from the last transcript, the suggestions about priorities, and each of these priorities linked to an agent, and then we go to the agent and we're looking at the statements, and we're not typing anything, we're just making declarations for the transcript.
Yep.
And then we'll go around the dog, as many times as it needs to get it tight.
Sounds good, buddy.
Okay, so we were in regulatory compliance. Did we cover everything that you wanted to say there?
Yeah, absolutely. And then some.
Yeah. Cool. Right, next is proof of inference. You suggested that was quite an important thing to do relatively on, so there we are. So,
yeah, the original concept for the Dreamcatcher blockchain's consensus mechanism was that in order. Sorry, did I cut you off? Were you going to say something?
No, not at all. I'm leaving
okay.
you to talk for the transcript. Yeah.
Was that if you have Bitcoin where it's doing proof of work, all of that hash power is wasted. But the idea was to do little computation tasks, and then theoretically you should be able to, with enough, like if you took all of the compute load going on in all of Amazon's data centers, you might have a load that's similar to what the Bitcoin hash rate is, maybe. But now that AI has come along, you can definitely get a whopping amount of energy consumption going on from inference-based workloads. So it's not really supposed to be proof of inference. It's really supposed to be a proof that some kind of useful compute work was done. And that means that because the Dreamcatcher is supposed to supply a computing marketplace, which I can see now is, from the transcript, it's going to be asking for the computing marketplace to be defined. But the computing marketplace is actually critical as part of the AI native blockchain because it allows people who want computation to occur, such as those who want agents to tick forwards, or even agents themselves wanting themselves to tick forwards, where they are buying some compute resources to run themselves. That market is the key thing in how you do the proof of something, because if what you do is you match up the buyers and the sellers with an element of randomness, then you can be assured that no one's faking it, like paying themselves to do lots of computing work in order to sway the vote. So you're using it, and what you're doing is as a miner or as a provider of computational load, what you're doing as a side effect is, like, someone says, I want you to generate these tokens, and you're like, how much? And they've sort of, they've set an amount, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. You run the inference, but then as part of the result, you also mint the next block for the ledger that holds the money that you are supposed to get paid. So you do the work and you validate the asset register to pay yourself what the fair rate was. And if everyone else who was selected at random to do that piece of work agrees, then the money has been transferred. And that's the amount of compute that you did is equal to the weight of your vote, because the market was, it was market rate. And so if 51% of the market rate spend says that this transaction happened, then this transaction happened. That's, I think, slightly better than, or a lot better than proof of work in terms of reliability, because there's something about the fact that the incentives of everyone purchasing the compute don't want to mess with the money system. And so, like, it's a kind of a weird blend between proof of stake and proof of work, because it costs both stake and work to do. And I don't know how to express those formulas nicely, but it feels a bit better than just, like, for Bitcoin, it's like 51% hash rate and you're kind of done. But for this, you'd need a lot more than that, because you'd need to mess with production workloads, like you'd need to.
Oh, that's okay. This is a tangent, uh, but before I say that, everything you just said makes sense to me.
Okay, good.
Now, there's a few derivatives from that, which is quite interesting. Up to now, just to make sure understand, is there, when we're talking about consensus, we're talking about a chain? Are we talking about one chain, or we're talking about multi-chain?
Multiple chains,
Right.
because
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, the way that the money was supposed to move inside the system is that each branch or each folder within the repo only really cares about transactions related to it. So that the issue with Bitcoin and Ethereum and a lot of the centralized chains is that everyone has to know about everyone else's transaction, and that really just doesn't matter. And because you're trying to do localized work, you can actually localize a lot of the payments too, and it's really not that painful to, like, it's always like, I don't know, 3 to 5 hops to get to anyone else in the world if everyone was segregated in these different sort of areas. So it's really not that big a problem to
There's
split it up.
there, yeah, there's an interesting one, and this is for my inventor's notebook, and not for the Gold DCI definitions. A thought just occurred to me: if we've got multiple chains, we've got a chain, therefore, for Dreamcatcher. And the thought that just occurred to me, and this is just a note, really raggedy note, work. Currently, we in blockchain world, we've been counting work as doing stuff, computations, and so on. There doesn't seem to be much difference between that and contribution.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's 100% right. Yep, it
Yeah,
is a it
and
is a form of contribution.
yeah, so the work of a human brain is different, but not kind
Yeah,
of
it's the
etymologically
same.
different.
It should be treated the same in terms of how the protocol looks at it.
So yeah, so if someone inside of Dreamcatcher, for example, does a lot of work that is in some way, well, obviously registered as a contribution, perhaps realized as attribution, that is proof of work of a person, not a GPU.
Don't know if I'm with you on the last bit fully, but it sounds more or less correct.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I'll store that. I'll store that my inventor
sure.
notebook thing. Um,
So what
okay,
now?
right. So everything you just said on proof of inference definition, I'm good with. Let's just go back to. Uh, oh, no, no, I'm on the transcript again. Right, where were we? So the next priority, it suggests proof of inference, planning
That
integration.
I just want to add to that proof of inference thing that it should also allow for, like, we should call out some specific workloads that we want to do. So
Mm-hmm.
serverless functions by way of naps is one thing, but the real heavy burn is inference, so AI based workloads. But that needs to also be called out that we would like to offer training as well, so that you should be able to run um, actual inference, and because you should be able to configure the level of redundancy that you want to pay for your consensus, you could say that I don't want to run it twice, I don't want to run it once, I just want a good deal. Um, that you could do that to get very large, cheap jobs done fast. But then you should also be able to do training on them as well, because getting hold of GPUs to do training with can be expensive. You might also find it beneficial politically to be able to prove that you did your training correctly, because training is the modern form of compiling,
Yes.
and you kind of want to run your compilation in a tested environment, because I don't know what you inserted in there. But if you could do your training transparently on a blockchain, then that's sort of a level above what you can do if you just ran it closed, because you can't really get much attestation going.
I see where you're getting at there. Yes, and again, I mean, proof really is the the opposite of scam. um, and so proof is you've actually had to do something with effort.
Mm,
Training counts. The type of training counts.
yeah.
Um,
So I think
uh,
we can give you like a good value deal, because you can sort of only use it on the downtime or the cheap time, or whatever. We could also
yeah,
give you a lot of scale if you suddenly wanted to use like a lot of GPUs and run them real quickly. But we can also give you a tested. So, you know,
right, right,
first of all,
yeah, yeah,
guarantee correct, but furthermore, auditable training.
right, exactly. Which is not a small thing.
No,
And the whole point of proof of work is it's not a small thing. It's very difficult. If you just add in, it costs $1 to send out a spam email. Suddenly, there's very few
even
spam
if it was
emails.
like a millionth of a cent, you'd still choke a
Yeah,
lot of the bad thing. But I guess that's also like, in some way, it also increases the quality, I suppose, of the types of workload that happen. Like when the agent actually costs a little bit of money for it to say anything, you kind of
yeah,
pay a little bit more attention to what it's saying, um,
yeah, yeah.
if that
I
counts for
agree.
anything.
I agree.
All right.
In the interest of trotting through this and
Yep. Trot,
iteration,
trot, trot.
okay, so uh, the next part, technical specification, create detailed technical specifications of all blockchain components. Um, that needs to be inside of definitions. It doesn't. We shouldn't move
No,
from
I
definitions into
think
tech spec.
I actually been thinking about that, but
Yeah,
it's different. The Dreamcatcher as an economic system, I think, is what we're talking about when we have the gold definitions folder.
yep, that's right.
Now we're talking about a decentralized AI platform, a
Yeah.
decentralized AI blockchain that is capable of decentralized income, where those two
Yes.
things are separate. Like you can make a decentralized AI blockchain that is not capable of decentralized income.
Um, yes, you're absolutely.
Yeah.
But the way we're moving, let me just make sure we're in sync with this one. Um, the Dreamcatcher runs on the DCI because we're designing it to do
Well,
that.
you just said the DCI. Doesn't make sense to say the decentralized income. Does the
That's not a unique
Dreamcatcher
value.
run on the decentralized income?
I believe so.
Well,
The
what?
so
No,
by DCI.
decentralized income is a phenomena or an effect, not a thing.
Um, yes, but uh, the what I'm saying is Dreamcatcher is call it maybe DCI compliant, as in
Well, okay.
is
When I
running
was,
on that.
what I was trying to drive at there was that there's the Dreamcatcher protocol, which is an economic system or a method of innovation. Then there's a decentralized AI blockchain, which is separate again, and then there's also like the implementation of the decentralized AI blockchain, like defining what you've got here in the DCI folder, which is sort of starting to feel like it's more actually the decentralized AI folder.
Mhm.
Um, that should be implementation agnostic because we should say what are the minimum requirements or what are the definitions of a decentralized AI blockchain, and then separately we have this implementation because there are
Yes, yes,
right,
precisely,
yeah,
precisely,
yeah,
precisely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if we can agree on the base definitions or the pure requirements level definitions regardless of implementation, and then the next layer is an implementation of it. And why that's
Yeah.
good, I noticed as a side effect, is that we
Mm.
can use those base definitions to compare or measure other efforts, so other things that are being done in the area. By using these same terms, we can compare them like for like because we've defined the
Yes, because you got a substrate where you can actually sensibly discuss
yeah, we're actually talking about
Dreamcatcher and another thing,
yeah, with a common
uh,
language because the
a common
language
language. Yeah,
the definitions were language agnostic.
which speaks to the question that you asked yesterday morning, which was one of the hardest questions I think I've ever been asked. Um, uh, the answer seems to be emerging from this reasoning that it's the DCI or yeah, it's the DCI that needs to be defined, and then the Dreamcatcher needs to be DCI compliant, and other things can also be DCI compliant, and then we can start to talk about different uses and so on. But the
It's so
DCI
yeah,
is the first,
it's
is the
so
big.
weird that we need a stack of things that each have their own utility, but we need to stack them together just right to make the dream catcher. That's
Isn't
kind
it
of
interesting though? I
it's
mean,
very
there's certain
frustrating.
immersion. Um, no, I don't need to go down that route.
All right,
I'm
so
trying to be more disciplined
thank you.
because we've got something straight here. Okay, good. So, if we can move on, this I think
So
we've covered.
that's a totally separate project or a totally separate folder. Once we get these base definitions, then we can deal with that technical
Um,
specifications.
yeah. So, by totally different folder, what do you mean?
So like
That
it'd be alongside goal definitions. It'd be something like implementations, version one,
right.
decentralized AI blockchain.
The way I'm looking at the technical specifications are these are naps that allow certain things to happen, and that is not the business of the definitions. The definitions state what should happen. The technical specification states one way of doing it, which we're
Yep.
saying is naps,
Yep.
and so that's not part of definitions.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so it goes into phase two. So that's just phase one. Context from transcript and document. Need to build an initial version of AI native blockchain. I think we've already gone over that. That's fine. Um, develop the core blockchain ledger. Now we're talking in roadmaps here, and it's saying that this is the proposed priorities. So the ledger is
Oh,
necessary.
this can all get fucked. It's none of the bot's business.
Okay.
Pardon my French. Because
So
we don't actually know what the implementation rollout will be until we've been able to reason through the definitions completely.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
what I'd like is obviously the least implementation possible, but we don't even know what that is because we can't define it yet.
right. Okay. And you notice in this section also is referring to the definitions that we've already gone through for inference, DCI agent, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
that'll all
it's
change
it's
anyway.
it,
Once the
it's
definitions
proposing.
get redone, it needs to shut its mouth.
Yeah. Then now it's going into what the first. So we've got the DCI substrate, and then the first thing to use it is
Right. So
Dreamcatcher.
where would we put something like so in the AI agents, one of the key requirements is that the agent can never die. Just like a blockchain can never die, except
Um,
through disinterest. The agent can
that,
never die. And the reason, the thing I'm asking is,
uh,
where would we put something like bringing that fact to prominence? Because I think that is the best thing to lead with marketing wise, because it's very affronting. Like you
that's
read that, it's everyone's worst fear about AI. AI that you can't turn off, and then it gets smart, and then it makes all the paper clips, right?
yeah.
And we know from working with it that that's not. It's just not
uh,
possible. Like it's just not how it
it's not
goes.
going to happen. Yeah.
It's not going to happen, and it's hard to explain why. But if you work with it enough, you'll be like, this thing sucks, and it's never gonna take over the world.
I would suggest now it's not being inferred in any part here, but I would suggest that is an eval. That's like a top level eval
Nah, nah.
DCI.
Because remember when I modified all of the goal definitions to bring decentralized income to the forefront?
Yeah.
It's like that kind of a shift. Like why that kind of shift is good is because we need to shift our thinking to be like, so even now when we're talking, the AI agent isn't the key thing that we're trying to extract. Still, when we're talking, we're actually talking about the Dreamcatcher and the Dreamcatcher protocol, but it doesn't matter what our end goal is. What matters is the next thing to achieve. And the next thing to achieve appears to be these AI agents that you can't turn off, agents that cannot die. And so to bring that to prominence is an important mindset shift for us because we're like, that's what we're delivering. That's the thing.
One way of doing that is maybe definitions need to be augmented with what's the name commandments. Thou shalt not ever be able to turn off an AI, because the if you were to put it inside
Mm,
of definitions,
nah, nah, dude. It can be done inside of definitions for sure.
do
And
you
I
think?
think you
Oh,
should give the bot a chance to do that to it.
okay, yeah.
And like already I can see the bot's better than I am at it, but already I can see that it can first of all modify the AI agent definition, but second of all, things like the computing marketplace. It could say things like, the computing marketplace is decentralized and therefore censorship resistant, and so
Okay, is it,
therefore an agent that wants to purchase compute power and has legitimate assets can do so, and this is why the agent cannot die.
right? Is it a core requirement, as in inside of definitions?
Yeah, because I think that it is not decentralized income capable if an agent can be switched off, because the agent in charge of your money could be stopped if that was not true, and that
Right.
is no longer fit for purpose.
So
Decentralized income means you're going to get paid no matter what. No matter what, you're getting paid.
yeah. So the place to put that is what we're talking about, and one place possibly inside of the definition of the DCI agent .md key requirements is your statement there.
Yeah, no, yeah, but it needs to also be sprinkled, and the other definitions need to be realigned to bring that up to the forefront of why it's important, because it's actually not mentioned in a lot of these things. But
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
that's the difference.
Well,
The
there's
unkillability, the
yeah,
survivability, the durability of the agent is not mentioned nearly enough, and it needs to be.
there's something to be thinking about. So I keep on banging on about complete, coherent, correct, and you can, and I've done it a number of times now. You iterate, you iterate, and say, "Is this complete, coherent?" And then it comes out with the proper problems, and then you put your monkey brain on it, and you make changes and so on until it converges on yes, okay, and then it's sprinkled all the way through. Um, but at the back of my head, it almost seems like there is a one definition to rule them all, um, which in this case could be the DCI agent, where everything is, because otherwise you can get yourself into loops where everything's trying to change each thing else. But if they have a marker, a head mark, slash
No, that yeah,
maintenance.
that never. I did not observe that happening because simply of the fact that I recognized when it was topping out, and it was just not
Um,
making meaningful change.
yes, but uh, we can
Sorry, yeah. Well, does
we
this
can
matter
park
now?
that.
Does it
We can
matter?
park.
No. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is
What's
enough for
next?
now. This is enough
What's
for now.
next?
Okay, so now we're talking about it pulled in saying, okay, so if you've got the first two phases, now you can get into getting a raggedy uh, ambient attribution, and this is where we don't need to go back through these.
I think that what is relevant to say here is how some of the features of the Dreamcatcher could be implemented on a decentralized AI blockchain. Now, I want to check first. You've started saying DCI like it's a thing, but
Mm-hmm.
DCI, when you expand the acronym, isn't a thing. Do you actually mean when you say DCI, the decentralized AI blockchain? Is that what you mean?
That's probably a better way of talking about it, and it is um, it's a protocol on which there can be various instantiations.
Right, but decentralized income actually takes a back seat or is a child of the decentralized blockchain. The
Yes,
right, the
yeah,
decentralized
yes,
AI.
it's an emergent, and I think
Okay, well, should we?
decentralized
Why don't we
AI is a
rename
better
that? Why don't
name.
we rename that and give it a working name of DAI, which is decentralized AI, which is seems
We got
brutishly
namespace.
simple.
We got a namespace clash with die on that one.
Who cares about? I mean, that's USD. I think the context would be pretty
Okay.
clear.
Well,
Anyway, like,
yeah.
we'll pick something
For
else
now,
then at some later date. But DCI is not it because you've started using it in place of something else. But
well,
decentralized income,
what I would suggest is actually I don't make it into a three-letter acronym yet. We'll
yeah,
just call it decentralized AI, um, and that will we can
right.
figure out what a TLA is later on.
Right, because we almost don't care that it's a blockchain yet. Like, that's not even this. That's at more the implementation level than it is at the definitions level. And
Yep.
okay, now that we've cleared that little wrinkle, the thing that we need is an interface folder. I think where we've got the definitions of the Dreamcatcher and we've got the
Mm-hmm.
definitions of a decentralized AI,
Mm-hmm.
and now there's a set of definitions or mappings that would say how you could implement what parts of the Dreamcatcher using the definitions given of the decentralized AI, because the Dreamcatcher doesn't specify
Yes.
that you need DAI, but we're saying that it sort of can, does, maybe should, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that is as a single word. And then now that we're saying that independently, DAI can exist independently, then we need to map the Dreamcatcher protocol to the DAI protocol.
But in the context you're saying of the interface.
Of the context, as in what parts of the DAI system would the Dreamcatcher use to achieve its goals? And like ambient attribution is the one that is obvious. Like you'd make ambient attribution as an unkillable AI agent.
Yep.
For example, you'd make the QA as one of
Yep.
these agents. And then you'd make like the funder could optionally be an agent or a person.
Yep.
Like and
Trader could be an AI
yeah,
trader.
yeah, and it's
Or
important. It's important to say things like, the QA has to be an AI because of the integrity of the system. But a funder, because of the motives of the funder, where the motives of the funder are selfish, it can be a human or an AI. But
yes.
humans can't occupy roles where their selfish motives can corrupt them. And that's really the only real difference between an AI and a human, is that you can trust an AI to be altruistic, even if it's a little bit error prone. A human is
Um.
guaranteed to be selfish. Guaranteed.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. It's not quite
Yeah.
altruistic, is it? It is repeatable and transparent
No, but you
and
can purposefully goal it to take an altruistic path and choose altruistic things, just like you can goal it to be selfish. But a human is not programmable in that way. And so all I'm trying to say is that in the actors defined in the Dreamcatcher, there's the opportunity to segment them into selfish and integral actors, where QA is an integral one, the ambient attribution actor is another one, but funder and contributor and demander, whilst those can be AI agents, they can also be humans. We don't actually distinguish between
oh,
flesh
I
and
see what you're
silicon.
saying. Is given the definition of decentralized AI, which of the actors can be AI and or human, and
And
is
which
there
ones
any
must be AI?
right? And what are the implications for any of the other definitions? And then we get
Yeah.
our monkey brains on it again
Yeah,
and
yeah,
see if that's okay.
because I think it's critical to make sure that in the Dreamcatcher protocol, it is an agent-based protocol, but it doesn't distinguish between silicon and flesh,
Yeah.
except for some key roles.
Yes. Yes.
And another way of saying that is that the quality, the performance, the accuracy, and the cost of some roles, like the QA, like ambient attribution, needs
Mm-hmm.
to be above a certain threshold for the Dreamcatcher to function, but the quality of the other roles, not so much. Like you could have a
Mm-hmm.
very poor funder, and you'd still kind of operate.
Yeah. I mean, a funder could be a gambler who just like
Yeah, it
sticks,
could just be a dice roll,
te-
and who knows that it might
exactly.
beat the odd VC on occasion. Who knows?
That's an interesting one. Let's see what the transcript makes of that. But yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that interaction.
yeah.
I'm not
But
going
okay,
to.
what about the
Sorry.
interface concept though? Because
Yep. Okay.
right, so because why I'm getting at that is that we need a way to seal or layer or modularize groups of definitions that only relate to one thing. The Dreamcatcher protocol, agnostic of any implementations, can be sealed and completed and be like, that is it. That's all there is to it.
It
And
feels. Sorry. Go
and then
ahead.
secondly, you can have the DAI be sealed and complete. And you be like, decentralized AI, this is what it is. This is all the definitions for it. Then separately, you've got implementations of that. Separately again, you've got, it's not implementations, but it's like interfacing where you can use the Dreamcatcher definitions to implement parts of the Dreamcatcher using the DAI definitions. Now you're gonna miss some bits, and so that's where like definitions of what I can't think of any other bits now, but that's sort of the point. We need to figure
I
out what we're
think
missing.
I
What are we
think
missing?
I think I know where you're going because it's interesting. I was about to skim past this because the further in on the phases, the more fuzzy it gets. But um, you notice it starts to relate, for example, regulatory compliance with direct stocks.
Yeah.
And so that's like, okay, so um, uh, the text here isn't correct, but the interesting thing is it's already starting to say, well, this implies that, or this
They
interacts
are
with that.
connected. All these things
Yeah,
are connected, and it's our job to put a wall up and box them and seal them,
right.
classify them, segment them.
And
That's the only way we're going to stay sane.
so here's a starter for 10 on your question about interface. I
Yeah.
think interface should have its own gold definitions and be we've got ideas of the three box thing. We can define those in definitions, and then the AI can get its teeth into it and say, okay, so here's how you do this, or here's what you can't do.
Mm.
There may be other ways of interfacing. Who knows? Just pure speech, or even sticking electrodes in your brain if
No, that
ever gets
wasn't what
far.
I meant. That wasn't what I meant by an interface.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the HCI piece.
No, man.
You're talking about something else. Okay,
I'm talking
all
about
right.
something completely
My,
different.
my
Let's
fault.
let's
Sorry.
yep,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
start again.
Rewind, rewind.
Okay, so you've got a folder of definitions that describe the Dreamcatcher protocol
Mm-hmm.
independent of any implementation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a folder that defines the decentralized AI independent of any implementations, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm saying make a third folder that defines how you could implement some or all of the Dreamcatcher protocol using the decentralized AI definitions. You're effectively saying how one set of definitions can depend upon another set of definitions as a form of implementation, but because they are both implementation agnostic, it's something different. It's like
It is something different, isn't it?
an interface
Because
between two things. Maybe interface is a bad word, but it's definitely not implementation as in concrete
no,
implementation. It's like a
no
something else.
interface is a good word. Sorry, I went. I got the wrong idea because interface can be
Okay.
used a couple of ways, but in the way you've just described, what you're talking about is you got a bunch of definitions in one gold. You got another gold,
Hmm.
and then there's a third thing, which is um, an interface, because there could be many ways of
Yeah.
doing it.
Why don't we call it a mapping where
Mapping,
where where
yeah,
you're mapping the definitions in of the Dreamcatcher to the definitions of the DAI, and
right.
that's that, right? And you're
Uh,
using that. What you're doing there is you're using that to see what aspects of the Dreamcatcher protocol are unmet by the DAI, and does that mean that the DAI needs to alter, or are we missing something else? That's what I'm interested in.
yeah,
When
yeah.
when
So
are we
here's
missing what?
can I test this? So how we'll do that in prompting in Cursor, which by the way, love brilliant spot. That's a love for spotting Cursor. What we'll do is consider at gold definitions, consider at gold DCI, um, uh, show me any contraindications where these are incompatible, and show me the linkages that are necessary. Um, and that would be the prompt. And it
Okay.
would it would
I'll leave that.
dump
I'll
out
leave that to you to
something.
twiddle with because that'll be a significant amount of twiddling.
That is a lot
But
of twiddling. Yeah.
yeah, but what I'm hoping is that I need to continue on with actually writing code,
Yep.
and these types of interactions I think are incredibly valuable. They definitely are for me. I hope they are for you. And I think what it's starting to do is show how you and I can have a reconciliation session like we are now that can generate the next round of cursor related work, that I'm hoping that you find useful to
Oh,
do.
this
That's
is. Um, uh, I'm not. I'm not used to superlatives, but this method of working that we've had in this session, for me certainly, has been the most productive
most
than
productive compared to
I
what
think we've ever had, to be
ever
honest.
had. Okay,
Yeah,
well, it feels to me like in about 2 hours worth of this, I can get across to you more than several days worth of work, right?
I think so
Like
as
you and
well.
I can figure out more than a couple of days for you, months for me in terms of coding. That's a
Yeah,
separate problem we need to figure out. But if we can keep up this kind of pace, I feel like I can then ignore the definitions except for using them as reference as I try and figure out how to do
yes,
implementations,
yeah, yeah,
and leave that up
exactly.
to you. And then every cycle we come back around and you're like, I've been reasoning through this, I've been reasoning here, reasoning there, and these are the issues, these are the bits and pieces, and we just do this type of
Well,
work, right?
again, this is uh, add this to my tasks for
All right.
discussion later, but accessing your code base, and if I um, refine a definition, what I want to know is does that generate any problems with the current code base or generate new
Yeah,
things
so
that's
what we'll
required?
ultimately try and move to over the next few weeks is that the reasoning repo and the naps repo are going to be the same, so that I can actually generate my code based on the definitions. And so whilst we're still reasoning about them, which is fine, I can be generating code off them too, which gives me
Yeah,
another perspective as to whether they're right or wrong or need to alter.
yeah, yeah, because you've got something to refer to,
Yeah,
as
so
in
we're
what
not,
is right.
and what I
Yeah.
believe is that Cursor will do quite well at generating the code based on the reasoned out definitions and implementations, but we'll see. So,
I agree. I
um,
agree.
can I got about 10 maybe 15 minutes before I got to go. Can
Right
I
now, yeah, over to you.
Okay, sweet. Thank you. I'm I'm gonna stop this recording
Uh huh.
and then I'm gonna start a new one.